Staff from around England, and then we went to Paris to meet with the heads of the Federation of Settlement Houses in Paris, France. They're very inspired. What I get through this without tears. Because around the world, people are fighting fascism. So, as you heard, I started about it as I was 87, joined because we used to have an annual membership in 1990, when I volunteered to be the board president for a year in 1993. We used to have an annual membership meeting before we became a full staff 501c3. Now we have an annual conference, and usually at our conferences, we had a round of introductions and an icebreaker. Well, too big. So instead, I do a kind of series of questions so people can kind of see who else is in the room and build connections and build community with one another. So if it applies to you, you can raise your hand. So who here is from Manhattan? Okay, the Bronx in the house. Queens. Okay. Staten Island. Forget anybody? I could use my French, but I was born. How many people are attorneys? How many people are organizers? How many people are students? Welcome. You're going to be learning some stuff today. How many people work for elected officials? Just people work for them at HRA. If you work for an elected official or work for government agencies, I should say. It's mixed. How many people are tenants? I think people know that. Well, we advise small networks. How many people is your first conference? More than one. More than five. How many people have attended our conferences since the late 1990s? Mary. We got a few of us. Okay, who's fans of the Yankees? Fans of the Mets? Who don't follow baseball? I like to tell folks my two favorite teams, the Mets and whoever's playing the Yankees. Pause for that. To get more serious, who are concerned about the policies and actions of Congress and the administration? And I want you to know that I talk about the policies. It doesn't matter about personality or party. It's the policies that we have to organize around. That's why we want to see this. Just want to be clear about that. So just want to gauge your degree of activism for people who are eligible. How many people register and vote? Right. How many people have read a letter or email to an elected official? How many people have been to a rally or demonstration? Right, no means. And how many people have done civil disobedience? All right. You have different roles to play. There's officers of the court, and there's by any means necessary. But we all have to find ways to resist in our own ways with safety. And folks who have a lot of privilege, we can take some extra risk for people who don't have privilege this time. These are white, straight, Christian male, and they understand the privilege I've had. It's horrible what I've seen unfolding in our country, and not just our country. So we had a government shutdown, and there was a perception of thinking that one side caved and was growing about it. But but there was real harm being committed out there. And I want to read a quote, which I left on my cell phone, from an SRO tenant who wrote out to me. Let's get there. I broke my glasses on flight because of the distance, so I had to take them off to read this. So I got this a few days ago. Overseas, Larry. Sometime after midnight, Food Balance restored the card. Our order from the market soon to test it. Thanks for the calming voice while government held food hostage. Longest I've ever gone without food. Skipped medications that require food. After feel better, we'll call back about work, etc. I hope they don't find a recluse senior deceased from this. Stolen shock, food being weaponized, equals flashbacks to things seen on TV about wartime. Thanks again. So we read about folks without food stamps when you put a face on it, and you nose up like you struggle. It really brings it home, and I certainly want to resist. We can't have casualties among the people we serve at the same time, so we have to really figure this out. Okay, so that part. And I am getting so angry that really am pissed off about things. I dressed up as Antifa for Halloween. I said, smash a neo-Nazi, kick the Klan. But I know in my heart that violence is not against them. I used to say when I was younger, love makes me strong, but hate guides my strength. And I have to remember that. It was important for me at the International Federation hearing about the community work so many people were doing. So I'll just read a quick quote from Bobby Kennedy. Who was a 10-year-old who was assassinated, and another crying about that. He gave a speech at the University of Cape Town in South Africa in June of 1966. So it kind of applies today. Everywhere new technology and communications bring people and nations closer together. The concerns of one inevitably become the concerns of all, and our closeness is stripping away the false masks, the illusions of differences, which is the root of injustice, hate, and war. Only earthbound man still clings to the dark and poisoning superstition that his world is bounded by the nearest hill, his universe ends at the river shore, his common humanity is enclosed in a tight circle of those who share his town or his views. His common humanity is enclosed in a tight circle of those who share his town or his views and the color of his skin. It is your job, it is our job, the task of young people in this world, to strip away the last remnants of the ancient cruel belief from the civilization of humankind. All right. I'm not going to read it, but the French Federation put together a remarkable statement about fighting fascism and putting it also in terms of the issues, the ideas. And it was so important to me about fighting with love and compassion, because that's what we really need. So we get on to our chants. We'll get back to the subject matter here. As you know, we've been fighting for right to counsel for a long time. So when I say, what do we want? You say lawyers. When do we want them? Now. What do we want? Lawyers. When do we want them? Now. What do we want? Lawyers. When do we want them? Now. You know this other one? I'm going to say housing is. You say right. Housing is. Right. Housing is. Right. Housing is. Right. Next one, we say, what do we want? You say peace. I'm going to say where? You say everywhere. What do we want? Peace. Where do we want it? Everywhere. What do we want? Peace. Where do we want it? Everywhere. And with, I'm going to say one world, and you say one love. One world. One love. One world. One love. One world. One love. The second quote is I thought the flowers would come in and get back up for that. So this is also from Bobby Kennedy, same speech at the University of Cape Town, South Africa. Few will have the greatness to bend history, but each of us can work to change a small portion of the events, and the totality of all those acts will be written history of this generation. Each time a person stands up for an ideal, or acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, they send forth a tiny ripple of hope, and crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. Peace. I love my flowers.
Thank you so much, Larry. Hello, everybody. My name is Nancy Torres. I'm the hotline supervisor here, Housing for Answers. Our next segment is we are going to hear directly from our staff. So if you've ever called our hotline, if you ever came up to our informational tables at any of the housing courts, these are the staff members doing this work every day who go home and try to decompress all the stories that we get to hear. And as housing advocates and lawyers in the rooms, you must definitely feel and understand where the staff are coming from. So I want to introduce Fatoma, our Bronx Assistant Coordinator, and doing this work for a long time.
Let's just hope that going first will boost my chances when I apply for that job. I am Fatoma from the Bronx. The Bronx continues to be the borough with the greatest needs. Yet, this is the borough where tenants struggle to pay taxes to resources, rental or legal. Bronx tenants are the least likely to be able to get a fee. The first court date virtual intake thing is very confusing and frustrating too. And in the Bronx, I know one group of people who are happy is the spam callers. We have been telling people to take any call that comes, hoping that it's going to be from a lawyer. And spam callers are happy. Many Bronx residents are confused about the type of assistance they apply for, whether it's ongoing or one shot, it's not clear. And the fact that many incomes are unstable and are informed makes it difficult to show future ability to pay. Another issue in the Bronx is, I would say, the lack of interest that tenants have in their own case. Many times, a few weeks into the case, people still don't know if they have a holdover or a non-payment. And many people show up in court with no bills. Thank God we have excellent tools, our own Salesforce, NICEF, eCourts, to check up the case. And after a few tries not finding anything, we suddenly remember that the case is in grandma's name. And we search under grandma's name. Now, I don't want you to think that everything is miserable in the Bronx. There are wonderful things. The Bronx courthouse has done a wonderful job staggering court dates. We book on 9:30, 10:30, 11, sometimes 3. Still, more often than we like, people come down to us complaining about waiting there for hours without being called. And now it is time to go pick up Junior, and it's a problem. Now, sometimes we're not lucky. Maybe the landlord's lawyer has many cases back there. We have to have from courtrooms to courtrooms. And maybe sometimes we suspect that maybe, just maybe the lawyer is punishing the tenant for not being a pusher. And you would think that lawyers will be happy to deal with people who know a little bit of their rights, but I guess it's not the case. Now, if getting a lawyer is a struggle, getting an interpreter is not. Or a GM, and lastly, in the long list of accomplishments in the months, we have noticed that despite the significant rental assistance challenges, we have seen many judges sign multiple OSCs. As long as tenant can show that the backward is not growing, and that they have a credible path to addressing their needs. So this is the state of the months.
Thank you so much. Next, we are going to hear from Sarah Lazar, who is a housing specialist here at Housing for Answers and works at the Brooklyn Informational Table at Housing.
Hi, everybody. So on the flip side from the Bronx, Brooklyn tenants continue to have some advantages in their favor. One is that we get some pilot programs in Brooklyn. For example, the Eviction Diversion Initiative to help people who have some sort of recertification issue as part of their case. We also have navigators in the courthouse and also extra HRA presence, which is huge. And we also benefit from a backlog in Brooklyn. The landlord lawyers are unhappy about it, but tenants are very happy about it because if it takes 4 months between filing and a first court date, that gives tenants more time to work on solutions, whatever that is. Maybe they need to find a job. Maybe they need to apply for arrears help. Maybe they need to find a new apartment, right? That backlog is helpful. However, we are also seeing significant numbers of tenants who never received court papers until a notice of eviction shows up, a marshal's notice. And this deprives them of all those benefits from the backlog and the extra programs, and of crucial opportunities like their intake for the free lawyer program, right? Because usually the judges, when they just show up with the marshal's notice, they assume you missed your opportunity for the free lawyer program, which in some of our opinion is unacceptable. There are also lots more tenants who are reaching the end of a judge's patience on one-shot deals. They keep doing order to show cause, and usually the judges will sign the order to show cause, but more tenants are reaching the end of the line, and so we're doing a lot of help coordinating with the HRA emergency room. Let's see. Also, Brooklyn is seeing a disproportionate share of post-evict tenants. So tenants who have already been evicted, and we're helping them get back in. This also requires a lot of follow-up from our courageous table workers. And also, Brooklyn tenants, it's a gentrifying borough, and they are more likely, more often than in other boroughs, hoping to address really complex issues like overcharge or illegal deregulation or succession rights or an abatement for repairs. But these tenants are getting frustrated with the lack of lawyers. And also these complex situations usually require a trial. And a lot of tenants report feeling to us like they are completely set up to fail. So that's the report for Brooklyn.
Thank you, Sarah. Our next guest is housing specialist Nico Hussain from Queens. You'll hear how things are going at the Queens Housing Board.
Hello. So one significant change in Queens is that this year is that the first court case and essentially the RTC intake is now virtual, following the model of the Bronx. However, many tenants are completely unaware that they have to participate virtually and are confused about the process. In addition, the QR code along with the dial-in number is listed in a small area of the petition as opposed to a separate piece of paper like in the Bronx. So this can create a lot of confusion along with not being accommodating for those with visual disabilities. HCA Queens staff can direct tenants how to call in, but the Queens Courthouse does not provide a room for computers to join the virtual court date, which can be an issue for those clients that have limited technological skills or those clients who don't have internet access due to financial issues. Which if you are in housing court, you probably most likely for non-payment because you have financial issues. We think that the courthouse should provide a room for tenants with these issues, along with making it very clear that the first court date is virtual. The first court date being virtual, it also means that the tenants are no longer being sent to a specific room in the courthouse where they will learn if they will get a lawyer or not. So now they have to wait for a phone call, which might never come or they might miss it. We try to coach the tenants about ahead of time about the importance of catching that call, but a lot of times we're only seeing that tenant after that first court date, which means it might already be too late. One of the things about Queens, it is the borough with the greatest language diversity and a great number of tenants need interpreters. One of the problems with the Queens Courthouse is that it does not ask the tenant if they need an interpreter until the first court date, at which point the tenant might have already missed very important information. One small change that we would request would be to improve the language accommodation and for tenants to be asked about if they need interpretation services when they're answering their petition. Queens tenants are also more likely to face holdover cases than in other boroughs due to the prevalence of more unregulated homes owned by small landlords. For these tenants, finding out if they are covered by the good cause eviction law is especially crucial because it may be their only form of defense. The increased likelihood of small landlords and immigrant tenant populations means that our Queens table sees a lot of informal landlord-tenant relationships. So no rent leases, maybe no rent receipts, and then it becomes really complicated as a result. So sometimes a prime tenant leaves, but then they're surprised when years later their name shows up on court case, or the roommate wants to become the prime tenant. One of the things that housing court staff have also noticed that Queens judges are more likely to refuse to sign an order to show cause if the arrears are higher than if the arrears are high, so just generally beyond 20K at this point. There does not really seem to be an understanding that tenants with high rent arrears require additional resources. However, these additional resources may not be as available for Queens tenants. The immigration status of many tenants may affect the type of benefits families are likely to be eligible for. Queens tenants are also less likely to have retirement accounts that they could borrow against, or a family member in the US who could temporarily supplement their income or become a third party provider. Thank you.
Thank you, Nima. Our next staff member is Angela Luis, and she will be talking about the hotline services.
Good morning, everybody. This might be a little bit of a big section, so I'm going to do my best to summarize what's happening on the hotline. So as many of you know, our hotline operates Monday through Friday from 9 to 5, and we receive hundreds of calls every day from tenants across New York, many of whom are representing themselves in housing court. For a lot of these callers, we are the first live person they've been able to speak to about their housing situation, which gives us a unique window on what the average New Yorker is experiencing in the housing system. Through these daily conversations, we hear from tenants as well as small landlords at every stage of their housing case. And we've gathered valuable firsthand insight into the systemic barriers that exist within the process. We know that not all of you have the opportunity to hear these calls, which can be extremely personal. And so I'm going to give you the takeaways of what we're hearing on the hotline. With reference to HRA and one-shot deals, HRA is asking tenants to resubmit documents over and over with no explanation why, unfortunately. Although HRA is a wonderful agency where folks can get public assistance, there's many barriers to being able to access resources. For example, one of the biggest things that we've heard are folks getting denials and not having an explanation as to why, which makes it difficult for them to move forward. How do you get arrears if you don't know why you're being rejected for a one-shot deal? The Access HRA app is also a constant source of frustration for tenants and workers alike. It can upload documents by having a tenant take a photo, but sometimes those photos are too blurry and you have to resubmit documents over and over again. Many tenants who get denied by HRA request a fair hearing, but are frustrated to discover how far off the date might be, which can really impact how the case moves along. When it comes to rental arrears or back rent, despite the fact that arrear amounts have held steady since last year, we've found that help is harder to come by. Many charities are not able to help as much as they used to, and one of the big reasons is because the rent is so high. Tenants are also severely rent burdened. And so despite the fact that they may qualify for assistance, sometimes they have to cover basic needs, food, Con Edison bill. And so even if they qualify, they may not be able to fully pay their rent. When it comes to right to counsel and the representation crisis, the rates of legal representation for tenants are reaching further lows. The crisis within the right to counsel program is directly impacting tenants' ability to cover their arrears and avoid eviction. Advocacy from a legal service provider can significantly improve a tenant's chance of getting arrears assistance. However, we find often on the hotline that it's hard for folks to get an attorney. And even when they have an attorney, that attorney may have so many cases that they're not able to fully give their all to each tenant. There's also a lot of issues with language barriers. Sometimes the tenant's main language is not the language that the attorney speaks, and this can make it really, really hard to understand what is going on in their case. And lastly, good cause eviction. Our team has had more practice screening tenants to see if they are covered by the 2024 good cause eviction law. This work has been aided by the justfix.nyc screening tool, which we use for tenants who struggle to use this kind of technology. Since landlord portfolio data isn't currently available outside of New York City, we often have to tell tenants that we don't have a definitive answer. But this tool has been really great because it's been giving us the ability to give tenants an idea if good cause is covered or not. And sometimes it's a new defense that they hadn't thought of before. So it's really great for unregulated tenants. There's so much more, but I hope this was able to give you guys a little bit of an insight on what we hear at the hotline.
Angela, our next speaker is Adriana Beckford. She's going to be speaking about two specific programs that we have been working on this past year.
Hi everyone, good morning. So the program that I'm going to be speaking about first is the AHTP program. And this program began here at HCA in July of last year. And we like to call this program kind of preventative measures. And basically what we like to explain about preventative measures is, as you heard from our staff, most of the time when folks come to us here at HCA, they are at their worst day. They are facing eviction, they owe a bunch of money, they're trying to start a case and they don't know how. So with the AHTP program, we go out to meet tenants where they are in communities, and we are giving workshops to tenants on basic housing court procedures, as well as basic tenants' rights. Over this past year, we've collaborated with a bunch of different agencies, including the community justice centers, as well as University Settlement. We've gone to ESL groups, we've done some housing fairs. And again, the purpose of this is to meet tenants where they are before they are coming to housing court and before any mistakes are made. That way they know what is going on and they understand these procedures. These workshops are happening in a couple of different ways. Firstly, we have these workshops happening on Zoom every single Friday. The times and topics for those locations can be found on our website. Same thing goes for the Manhattan Housing Court. We do have those workshops happening every single Monday from 1 to 2 p.m. Myself or my colleague Liliana, who's not here today, will most likely be the ones giving those workshops. So please feel free to let folks know about that. And the last way that these workshops are happening mainly is, again, we are going into communities. We are collaborating with all of you to bring these workshops to tenants so that they fully understand their tenants' rights in New York City, as well as the basic housing court procedures. So if this sounds like something that you might like to bring to your organization, please find myself or Sarah Lazar, who's previously up here as well. The second program that I am going to speak about is our advocates training, which in contradiction from the AHCP program has been happening for a long time here at HCA. But since the pandemic, those are also happening on Zoom. The major benefit of that is also those workshops are usually recorded as well as live on YouTube. So if you are unable to make one of those trainings, and it seems like a really great topic for you and your agency, you are able to go straight to our YouTube to find those trainings. You can rewatch them, as well as the content for those trainings are also found on our website as well. For this program, for the advocates training, we are beginning a little early this year, and usually I believe we're beginning in December or late November. So if you would like to, again, know more about this, make sure that you are signed up for our mailing list, because that is how you get the notifications of the topics and when those locations and topics are happening. Okay, so.
This Friday.
Oh, great. So we're starting this Friday. I won't tell you what the topics are. You guys are gonna have to kind of inquire about that. So please sign up for our mailing list, find one of us staff members, and we'll be happy to let you know more about the trainings.
Thank you, Adriana. Our next speaker is Gina Cuevas, our Manhattan coordinator, who's been doing this work for a very, very long time, and I know a lot of people know her.
I want to talk today about the Trinity program. Thanks to the funding of Trinity Church Wall Street, Housing for Answer is taking our tenant support to the next level by providing in-depth assistance to help callers and table visitors to resolve their housing court cases. While our hotline remains a vital resource for thousands of tenants each year, this project, now in the second year, allows us to go deeper with some of our most vulnerable callers, offering critical follow-up and support to address complex housing challenges. Our experienced team members are leading this effort by identifying tenants who need additional help and working with them into their situation are resolved. This includes referrals for specialized programs such as connecting tenants to adult protective service, APS, or securing a guardian ad litem, the GAL. Accommodation for disability, helping tenants request assistance under the Americans with Disability Act. Helping navigate HRA or home-based application like following up on one-shot deal or public assistance application, or strategizing ways to secure rent arrears. This includes follow-up work to expedite one-shot deal to get an evicted tenant back into their home as quickly as possible. We connect very vulnerable tenants to the Office of Civil Justice for screening for legal representation. This targeted follow-up ensures the most vulnerable tenants facing severe housing challenges get the personalized assistance they need. Housing Court Access staff provide guidance and support, empowering tenants to access services and resources that can make the difference in stabilizing their houses. Tenants facing complex challenges have won some exciting victories to the Trinity program. For example, this summer, we helped Ms. La Sala, a senior who has lived for more than 32 years in her rent-stabilized apartment. She fell behind in rent due to health problems, including back surgery, and was not able to go back to work. Her sister, who used to assist her with the part of the rent, had moved back to her native country. This left Ms. La Sala in a bind. We did referrals to the Bridge Fund, Coalition for the Homeless, and Med Council on Jewish Poverty, and contacted her home-based caseworker. Even though we had approvals from HRA and multiple charities, including home-based, she was still evicted due to delays in obtaining checks. We helped her file an order to show cause to restore her to possession. Once she got the court date, we put some pressure on this agency to expedite these checks and drop them off in court, so we could make sure she was reinstated back into her apartment immediately. We are also following up to see if we can help her get a city specs to stabilize her home long-term. Trinity Project reflects Housing Court Answer's commitment to unrepresented litigants going beyond basic support, ensuring that every tenant, especially the most vulnerable, has the tools they need to navigate housing court successfully. I'm the longest person here in Housing Court Answer. I'm not saying how long. I just want to say thank you, Larry, for everything. And on behalf of Amelia and I, thank you for everything you have done for this organization, for the trip that we used to take to Albany. We surely missed those trip. And we were privileged to go to Albany. And it was not just a board member and taking the staff. It was like a family. Every time we went to Albany, every year, it was like a family sharing stories, talking and everything. And in a way, I feel bad for my coworker that didn't get this privilege of working with Larry and going up to Albany. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Gina. Our next speaker is Ellie Rodriguez. She is one of our current interns here at Housing Court Answer.
Oh my gosh. Good morning, everyone. This year, after many decades of welcoming SYP to every summer, ACA has expanded the internship program and has welcomed the first class of interns from Coalition for the Homeless, the First Step program. First Step is a training program for women that want to be part of the social service field. At the ACA, we have been working, helping the staff with data entry, managing the line of people waiting, and filling out some of the forms that the clients need. This internship has really helped me because it allowed me to gain a new experience working for the first time in the social service and developing my skills and then practicing my passion for helping others. This organization is really committed to training us on tenant rights and housing court procedures, and they have been passionate about sharing housing knowledge with us. And professional skills while fighting for the community advocacy. Unfortunately, the internship is almost over and we will be looking for work in the housing field. But we feel that we have a strong foundation due to our time here in Housing for Answers. And I want to take the chance to say thank you very much to all the staff, to our supervisor, Nancy, and to Jessica for giving the opportunity to be here today. And especially to the person that has been with me every step of the way, our coordinator, Gina, and Manhattan Court. I know that it has been a little challenging for her because now she needs to answer the client questions, plus my questions too. But it has been a really great experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ellie. And we have a few more interns, so please come chat them up at 4 p.m. The next person that we want to introduce is, well, Sarah, come join us. They will introduce our next speakers. And just a round of applause for all our staff.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Okay, so this is another project that HCA has been a part of that is launching today. It's very exciting. You may have seen a little bit of this, but there's a brand new resource that will be available for everybody, and it is called Good Cause NYC. This is a brand new brochure for explaining the good cause eviction law that was mentioned earlier that passed last year. So Housing for Answers has been working on this in partnership with Take Root Justice. Oh, yes. With the Center for Justice Innovation, with the Center for Urban Pedagogy, all right, And then also the art collective, known as SWRD, made up of graphic designers Sarah Wang and illustrator Ryan Davis. So today we'd like to share what this new guide is for and why you should make sure that all your clients get their hands on a copy. But first, I'm going to hand it over to the Center for Urban Pedagogy, or CUP, to explain a bit about this work and how it applied to this tremendous new project.
Hi everyone, my name is Agustin. I work at CUP. CUP works with community organizations to create educational resources that help people with information about how to assert their rights, benefit from public services, and change systems that create injustice. To create our projects, we work with people who are directly impacted by these systems and processes, because we believe information should be grounded in the lived experience of communities. We also work with artists and designers to make this information engaging and easier to understand. On this project, we met with tenant union members and tenant organizers twice over the course of the project to hear about their experience navigating housing court and to check in on the development of the project. We showed them drafts and got their feedback on if the information made sense and if they related to the illustrations and the flow of information. We also met with other housing justice organizations like Just Fix, Housing Justice for All, Housing Court Answers, and representatives from HPD's Tenant Protection Unit. All of these perspectives came together to inform the content of our resource. Special thanks to Just Fix and their digital tool by the same name, goodcausenyc.org, a screener that helps tenants figure out if they're covered by Good Cause. The website was launched a week after we started working on our project and allowed us to create a complementary resource that refers tenants to the website at key moments in the process, while also picking up where the website leaves off and supporting tenants as they defend their rights in housing court. So I'll hand it back over to the advocates to explain a bit more about the issue.
Hi everybody, morning. My name is Amanda Lippman. I am the attorney in charge for the Community Justice Connect programs at the Center for Justice Innovation, where we train community member volunteers across civil legal issues. Far and wide across all three of our locations, Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens, housing is our most sought after issue for visitors. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the cause eviction issue that we've already heard a bit about. So before 2024, tenants living in unregulated market rate apartments were not protected from excessive rent increases or eviction at the end of their leases. Tenants and housing organizers, like Sarah and other folks in this room, fought very hard for the passage of good cause eviction, a New York State law that since 2024 protects some tenants living in unregulated market rate apartments. Covered tenants are protected from big rent hikes and eviction without good cause. Good cause is a complicated law, as many of us know. Only some market rate apartments are covered, so the first hurdle the tenants face is figuring out if they're protected. Thanks to goodcausenyc.org, sometimes that's easy, which is lovely. But in many cases, it can be really challenging, and landlords can exploit this uncertainty to illegally raise the rent and evict tenants who should be otherwise protected. Even if tenants are protected, there are some cases in which their landlords may legally increase the rent excessively, or still evict tenants at the end of their leases. When landlords illegally exploit these exceptions, it can be complicated and confusing for tenants to know how to fight back. Good cause is an issue best handled with legal support. New York City's Right to Counsel program is supposed to provide free legal representation to eligible low-income tenants facing eviction in housing court. Some tenants don't qualify, or even if they do, unfortunately, there just aren't enough lawyers for everyone. This leaves many tenants to fend for themselves with their homes on the line. We needed a guide that would explain good cause in simple terms and that would support tenants unable to access a lawyer as they defend themselves in housing court.
I'm Sarana Swampy, a colleague of Agustin at CUP. So when we spoke to tenant union members and organizers, we learned how disheartening and really overwhelming housing court can feel.
without a lawyer to help them navigate their cases. Tenants reported feeling like the system was designed to make them mess up and miss out on the good outcomes of their case. Community members urged us in our sessions to center the human impact of good cause. They asked us to help tenants feel empowered to defend their rights while also preparing tenants for what housing court can really feel like. So to do this, we framed the resource around two fictional characters, Shay and Ray, who fought back successfully against their landlords and defended their rights, their good cause rights in housing court. Over the course of the guide, Shay and Ray learn how to find out if good cause protects them, the protections that it provides to them, the path they might take to get to housing court, and how they get prepared to tell their stories in court, and then how to follow best practices, especially if they don't have a lawyer with them during those first very chaotic few days in court. So things like asking for legal support, setting boundaries, asking for discovery, and telling the court staff their side of the story. A little bit about the design of this pamphlet as well. So the pamphlet unfolds like an accordion to help lead tenants through the process. The front side introduces good cause and how to defend yourself before you get to court. And then the back side, once we arrive on the back side, our protagonists are now in court explaining how to defend the tenant's rights. Our designers, Sarah and Ryan, depicted our protagonists with empowered, determined expressions to help readers feel more confident standing up for themselves in what can be a really overwhelming and difficult journey. There's also speech bubbles throughout the resource that can demo to the reader some real phrases that they can say, especially in court, where they might be unfamiliar with the process and again not have a lawyer by their side. Every page throughout also is sure to depict and show tenants in their homes and alongside our main protagonists in court, so that we can always remember who fought for these rights originally and who it's designed to protect.
Morning. My name is Michael Grithal. I'm the director of the housing practice at Taper Justice. So in developing the resource, we wanted to help tenants prepare for housing court and think strategically about what is going to happen to them there. We strive and we demand a world where every tenant has access to a lawyer, or even better, where tenants don't need lawyers because housing is not something you have to fight for. But we know that in this world, tenants often have to go to court and they often have to do it alone. So while every case is unique and tenants should try to seek out a lawyer or an advocate who can help them plan, we gave 3 scenarios that run through common disputes that can arise in housing court under the good cause eviction law and showed how Shay and Ray navigate each case. So in the first instance, both Shay and Ray disagree with their landlord about their good cause coverage. Shay and Ray believe they're covered, the landlords believe they're not, and we walk through what that might look like. In the second dispute, Shay and her landlord agree that she's covered by good cause, but her landlord believes they can raise her rent above the local rent standard. And we walk through that. And then in the third dispute, Ray and his landlord also agree that he's covered by good cause, but his landlord asserts that they have good cause to evict him. For each dispute, we provide examples of the kinds of evidence that would support Shay's or Ray's defense, including evidence each of them have access to, such as online databases and JustFix tools, and evidence only their landlords have access to, which Shay and Ray can ask for in court by asking or demanding discovery. Okay. And I'm going to turn it over to Sarah, I guess.
So, as you're looking at the second half of the brochure, it closes by helping tenants to navigate the chaotic early courthouse visits where they'll be expected to try to settle their cases with their landlords or if they can't, then they end up going to trial. And so in this situation, Shay and Ray, they're interacting with lawyers, court staff, asking for legal support, they're setting boundaries, asking for discovery, right? And trying to tell their side of the story. So it is beyond messed up that any tenant would have to go through this process without the support of a tenant lawyer, but we made this resource for the tenants that probably are gonna have to, right? And, you know, speaking from personal experience, I feel like this resource could offer a glimmer of hope, right? And support during an extremely difficult and almost impossible time. You know, and speaking as somebody who had to give up an unregulated apartment that today I wouldn't have had to, seeing this brochure would have given me the tools I would have needed to save that apartment. Now I've got rent stabilization, but since I don't, but this is meaningful, right? So ideally, every tenant in unregulated housing who could potentially be covered by good cause, we would like for them to have a copy of this resource. So Housing Court Answers and Take Root Justice and Center for Justice Innovation, we're going to be giving out this brochure to everybody who we think could benefit from it, but we also need the rest of your help to get it into more tenants' hands. Let's see, pre-orders for the bulk orders are now live until December 10th, and now is the cheapest they will ever be because we're doing a very big print run. The actual details on price, I think you would need to talk to Honesty. Yeah, it's on the pre-order page. If you see a flyer like this, it can give you QR codes that you need to get to it. And also keep in mind that the copies of the resource you're holding, they're just mock-ups that we printed out and taped together ourselves and folded ourselves. But the ones that you order will actually be professionally printed on thicker paper, professionally folded. So also this resource exists as a digital PDF. And so it's designed for easy phone scrolling for those of you who find it easier to work with that. And communicate it to people. Let's see, but physical copies are really helpful for tenants because they're able to take it home, really marinate on it, study it, focus on the parts that are harder to understand. So yeah, you're going to see QR codes for pre-orders and for the digital resource. So closing this up, but we would like to take a photo. So if you can, if you've got one of these mock-ups, if you could, unfold it so we can see it, right? We think it'd be kind of fun to be able to see all these people holding this new resource. Very cool, thank you. And yeah, while we're taking this photo, maybe we can get a little chant going, right? Housing is a human right, yeah? So housing is a human right. Housing is a human right. Housing is a human right. Right, thank you very much.
Sarah, thank you, Cup. This is great brochure, great information for a new law that is very, very complicated. Our next segment is a coffee break, but before anyone stands up, we will be returning and starting back promptly at 11:25. Our Senator Brian Kavanaugh will be joining us. So do enjoy the bathroom, have coffee. And for our staff, Housing for Answers, and for our board, we would like to take a picture. So Housing for Answers staff, if you can come to this side. If you see a colleague of ours, please send them over here. And the board. So anyone from Housing for Answers, we are going to take our staff picture as well as Before answer that, please join us up front. We are taking a picture with the board.
Also, your
Housing for answer staff and board join us up front. We are taking a picture.